you could be asking yourselves, well, if there's no CBA agreement, why would the owners even send them contracts? Why would the team send these players contracts? They're not going to accept it. There's no CBA agreement. Well, once you start showing them money, they're more likely to say, BS, money talks, BS walks. Once you start showing them contracts that they could possibly be getting.
To understand how aggressive this tactic really is, you have to look at the timing. There's no new collective bargaining agreement in place. Players have not agreed to revised terms. Negotiations are unresolved. And yet, the league has quietly told every general manager in the WNBA to proceed as if none of that matters. Send the offers. Put numbers on paper. Start the process anyway. That move is extraordinary. It creates the illusion of normalcy while negotiations are actively stalled. And it places players in an impossible position. On one hand, they're being asked to remain unified through the union. On the other, they're being shown concrete financial opportunities that may not exist if talks collapse or drag on indefinitely. This is where the manipulation becomes clear. Abstract concepts like revenue sharing percentages or salary caps are easy to debate collectively. But once a player sees an actual dollar amount tied to their name, the conversation changes. Agents start calculating take-home pay. Financial advisors start weighing in. Family members start asking questions. Suddenly, the broader fight feels distant compared to what's immediately at stake. The league knows this. That's why the numbers matter more than the messaging. Once offers circulate, unity isn't challenged through argument. It's challenged through temptation. Even players who strongly believe in the union's goals are forced to confront a personal reality that doesn't wait for systemic change. This approach reframes the conflict entirely. Instead of players versus owners, it becomes player versus uncertainty. And that's a battle the league believes it can win.
Let's take this a step further. If I'm an agent, I am using this, and when I'm going to my player, I'm using it to tell them how much this would translate to on the CBA deal that the owners currently offered. So let's say my name's Kelsey Mitchell, for example. Boom, here's 400. The Fever are offering you a $400,000 max salary contract. You know, Kelsey, if you guys would accept that deal, it's really a 1.2.
To see how this pressure works in real terms, imagine being in the position of a top-tier player like Kelsey Mitchell. The Indiana Fever extend a qualifying offer worth $400,000, the maximum under the current agreement. On the surface, that's already a significant number, but it's not the real pitch. Now your agent steps in and reframes it. Under the owner's proposed structure, that same contract doesn't stay at $400,000. It balloons. Suddenly, the math points to something closer to $1.2 million. Triple the money, real security, life-changing income. At that moment, the discussion stops being theoretical. Solidarity isn't abstract anymore. It has a price tag attached to it. You're no longer weighing ideas. You're weighing consequences. And the league understands exactly how destabilizing that is. Players have spent months publicly emphasizing unity, fairness, and collective progress. But none of that eliminates personal responsibility. Careers are short. Windows close fast. Injuries don't wait for better systems. So when a player is asked implicitly to turn down 7 figures for the sake of principle, the emotional weight is enormous. This is the breaking point the league is testing. Not because players are weak, but because they're human. The offer forces players to ask themselves how much sacrifice is reasonable, and whether the collective fight will still be there if they personally walk away from a guaranteed opportunity. That internal struggle is exactly what ownership wants. Doubt doesn't have to destroy solidarity completely. It only has to weaken it enough to shift leverage.
Wherever she's going to sign, her agent comes up to her, hey, so-and-so's offering you $300,000. If we translate that to the deal that you guys are currently turning down, that's really an $880,000 deal. Oh, well, I didn't think about it like that. That's what's going to get these players to jump. If they start equating what the offer is to what that new offer could be that the owners are laying out there.
Right now, money talks isn't a slogan in the WNBA. It's the league's entire negotiation strategy. What's happening has moved far beyond good faith bargaining and into calculated psychological pressure. Ownership isn't trying to win at the table anymore. They're trying to win inside players' heads. Instead of dealing with the union as a unified force, the league is deliberately testing how strong that unity really is when real money gets placed directly in front of individual players. There's no new collective bargaining agreement. Negotiations are unresolved. And yet, the league has instructed general managers to proceed as if business should continue normally. Send out offers. Put numbers on paper. Let agents start conversations. This move isn't about efficiency, it's about leverage. Abstract demands like revenue sharing percentages are easy to defend collectively. Actual dollar figures attached to a player's name are much harder to ignore. Once a player sees a contract, the conversation shifts instantly. Agents begin calculating future earnings under ownership's proposed framework. Financial advisors weigh in. Family members start asking questions. Suddenly, the collective fight feels distant compared to the certainty sitting right in front of you. That's the trap. Solidarity doesn't break because players stop believing in it. It weakens because uncertainty is expensive. Picture how this works in real terms. A player like Kelsey Mitchell receives a qualifying offer worth $400,000 under the current structure. On its own, that's significant. But then the framing changes. Under the owner's proposal, that same deal translates closer to $1.2 million. Triple the money. Guaranteed security in a league where careers are short and injuries are unforgiving. At that point, the question isn't ideological anymore. It's personal. How much are you willing to sacrifice today for a promise that may or may not materialize tomorrow? Legally, the league is operating within the rules. After the January 3rd deadline passed without a deal, both sides entered a status quo period. Under U.S. labor law, qualifying offers are permitted during this phase. But what matters is what the league didn't have to do. They could have agreed to a moratorium, a pause on all free agency activity until a new CBA was finalized. That option was discussed. The union declined. Ownership didn't hesitate. By January 11th, league officials had contacted executives across all 12 franchises, green-lighting immediate action. Offers went out. Phone is rang. Numbers started circulating. And with that, the pressure shifted entirely onto the players. The league didn't need public statements or threats. The math did the talking. This is no longer owners versus players across a negotiating table. It's players versus time, uncertainty, and the reality that solidarity is hardest to maintain when opportunity knocks individually. Ownership is betting that enough players will blink first, and that bet is shaping everything that happens next.
Once they start getting shown actual dollar signs and figures, it's going to be much harder for them to stay united on this front. Let's talk about it. Miami. When the clock strikes midnight on Friday night, the third deadline in negotiations between the players and the WNBA for a new collective bargaining agreement will have come and gone with no deal. The league won't turn into a pumpkin, but negotiations will.
Right now, the phrase money talks isn't just a cliche floating around the WNBA. It's being used as a deliberate tactical weapon. What's unfolding behind closed doors isn't negotiation in any traditional sense. It's leverage warfare, and the league is playing a calculated game it would rather not publicly admit to. Instead of dealing with the players as a united body, ownership appears to be testing a different angle. Fracture the union from the inside by targeting individuals. This strategy has nothing to do with reaching common ground or negotiating in good faith. It's about exploiting human nature. When collective resistance holds firm, the easiest way to weaken it is to isolate people one by one and place temptation directly in front. Contracts become bait. Salary figures become pressure points. The message isn't spoken outright, but it's unmistakable. You don't have to wait for everyone else if you're willing to look out for yourself. That's why this moment feels darker than previous labor disputes. This isn't owners versus players across a table. This is psychological warfare disguised as routine business operations. The league understands that solidarity is powerful in theory but fragile in practice, especially when real money is introduced. By shifting focus away from collective outcomes and toward personal gain, the league forces players into an internal moral conflict. Do you hold the line for long-term fairness, or do you secure life-changing money right now while it's available? That tension is the point, and it reveals something critical. Ownership doesn't believe they can win a straight-up negotiation. Instead, they're betting that patience will crack, priorities will shift, and unity will erode under financial pressure. This isn't accidental. It's intentional, and it signals that the battle has moved from conference rooms into players' personal decision-making spaces.
Yet in place, WNBA officials spent the past 2 days calling general managers and executives from every franchise to tell them that the status quo period means they can send out qualifying offers to free agents beginning today, sources told Front Office Sports. So my question is, today, January 11th, how many players got calls from their agents saying, look, Chicago Sky are offering you this. The Las Vegas Aces are offering you this. The Los Angeles Sparks are offering you this. The Connecticut Sun are offering you.
The legal backdrop makes this even more complex. On Friday night, January 3rd, the league passed its third negotiation deadline without a deal. Both sides entered what's known as a status quo period. Under this framework, negotiations continue while the conditions of the expired CBA remain temporarily in place. Under U.S. labor law, the league is required to allow teams to issue qualifying offers during this period. But, and this is the critical detail, they were not required to push the process forward aggressively. There was another option on the table. According to multiple sources cited by Front Office Sports, the league proposed a moratorium to the Players Association just 1 hour before the deadline. That moratorium would have paused all free agency activity until a new CBA was finalized. The union declined. Once that decision was made, the league seized the opening. Technically within their rights, they moved forward in a way that maximized pressure. What could have been a quiet, procedural phase became a full-scale activation of offers. This isn't illegal, but it is strategic. The league didn't just follow the rules, they weaponized them. By January 11th, the plan was in motion. Over the course of 2 days, WNBA officials contacted executives and general managers across all 12 franchises. The message was consistent and unmistakable. The status quo period allows qualifying offers to be sent immediately. Proceed. And proceed they did. Agents' phones started ringing. Conversations shifted overnight. Players began hearing specifics. This team is interested. That team is prepared to go to the max. Another team is willing to structure something long-term. These weren't rumors anymore. They were real numbers, real scenarios, real decisions. That's the moment everything changes. Because once offers exist, the union isn't just negotiating against ownership. It's negotiating against time, fear, and individual self-interest. The league didn't have to say a word publicly. The pressure did the talking for them.